second. All right, so recording's in progress. Let me go ahead and share my PDF, and then we're gonna get started. So again, guys, welcome to everyone who took the time out to join us today. I ask that if you guys can just keep yourselves on mute, unless you have something to say, then definitely unmute because we won't be able to hear you. So, but for the time being, when you're not saying anything, mute yourself so that there's no additional noise and feedback. Just a real quick introduction about myself. My name is Ismail. Most people call me as Ish. I originally came to this country from India in 1991. I was a 13-year-old. Can you imagine going from a small little village in India to the Bronx overnight? I mean, it was a big shock, right? And I was 13 years old, but that's what I did. I grew up in the Bronx. I went to DeWitt Clinton High School. I went to Lehman College. My education is actually in health administration. I work for New York City Department of Health. I've also worked for Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. And for the last 15, 16 years, I've been a business owner. I've sold everything from cell phones to sofas to mortgages to groceries to now real estate. All right. So I'm an entrepreneur and I love selling things. I'm blessed to be a real estate broker with my company. I also teach real estate classes, and I wear a few other hats and so forth. If you guys need notary, I'm also a notary, so call me and I'll take care of you, no problem. Now let's talk about why you should buy a house. People kind of have some idea about why we buy a house. We've all heard like stop paying the landlord, the price of the house is going to go up, the value of your house is going to go up. We've all kind of heard that, but let's take a look at it in a little bit more detailed way. Number one right here is happiness, knowing that you own this piece of land in America. It's yours. Knowing that you own this property, having housing security. Your landlord can't just cancel your lease. Your landlord can't tell you, hey, I need the apartment back from next month because my cousin's going to be living with me. So you are in control of your housing decisions, right? So that's one thing. Another is, not having to ask the landlord for permission for a dog or a cat. If you want to get, right? There's laundry in the house. You don't have to schlep your bags to the laundromat, right? There's parking to come home. I remember when I didn't have a house, I used to have to look for parking like 20 minutes every night when I came home, right? So things like that. There's gardening. There's a space for the kids to run around and so forth. Tax savings, guys. Tax laws are geared towards property owners. Okay, tax laws are to benefit property owners. And so there are a lot of tax benefits. For example, the taxes that you'll pay to your county, such as Bronx or Long Island or Nassau, Suffolk or Westchester, some of those taxes are, will come back to you when you file your personal taxes in April and March, okay? And the interest that you'll pay to your mortgage company, some of it comes back to you when you file your taxes. Normally, when you go file your taxes, you take your W-2s. Well, once you become a homeowner, you're also going to take some mortgage documents, and you're also going to take property tax documents because some of that money is going to come back to you. Appreciation, which is at the top of my screen, appreciation. Appreciation means that the value of your property goes up while you live in it. Okay, real estate always goes up over time. Okay, there are some small ups and downs over throughout the period, but in the long run, real estate always goes up in value. For example, I like to give my example, which is meant to motivate buyers. I bought my house in 2013. I paid $450,000. Today, my house is an easy $1 million. Okay, 8 years and my property has doubled in value. Appreciation means the value of the property that you own will go up. Okay, now some rich folks have yachts and some rich folks have jets, but you know what? They all have property. Why? Because real estate is the safest investment. In fact, real estate is the fastest way to build wealth in America. If you want to become wealthy in this country, real estate's the way to go. Okay. All right. Equity. Equity means that the monthly payment that you make to your mortgage company, some of it goes right back into the house. Okay. When you pay your landlord $2,000 rent, all $2,000 are gone. That's it. You're not keeping any of it. It's gone. But when you pay your mortgage for $2,000, some of it is going away in interest, but some of it is going right into the house as a savings account. And when you sell your house, you're going to walk away with the appreciation as well as with the equity. All right. Roots. People who own their house tend to live in the community 4 times more than people who rent. That allows you chance to build connections with the community and the organizations, the local church or the soup kitchen, and make friends and so forth, right? So you establish deeper roots in the community when you own a property rather than when you rent. And here's my favorite one, which is education. People who own homes, their children earn higher test scores and graduate at a higher rate than children of renters. I mean, who would have thought, right? It's an indirect connection. There's no real connection to home ownership and education, but there's an indirect connection between owning a house and your kids doing well in school. I mean, how beautiful is that? So that's one. So now that we have talked about the benefits of owning a house, does anybody have a question about what we just discussed? You know, what are some of the reasons why people should buy a house? Here are the reasons. Anybody has any questions? And if no questions, I'll move on to the next slide, which is the buying process. And those of you who came a little bit later, don't worry, this session is being recorded, and I'll send the file, I'll send the video at the end to everyone. So in case you came late, or in case you want to kind of go over something that I covered, you'll have the opportunity to do that. All right. So now that we talked about why people should buy a house, let's go ahead and talk about the way to buy a house, right? And it is a long and potentially complicated process, right? So you really want to make sure that you have someone educating you in this home buying process. Unfortunately, guys, I don't know if you realize that a home buying is the biggest transaction of your life. Okay, most Americans do not buy anything besides a home. Okay, first of all, we were supposed to do introduction, and we would kind of just start to roll into the thing. So I apologize for this. So let's go ahead and take a brief moment. And now that a few more people have joined, maybe it was meant to be like this. So let's go ahead and take a moment to. I did introduce myself, so now I'm going to take a moment to introduce my friend and mortgage lender, Donna Virapen from Teachers Federal Credit Union. Donna, go ahead and say hi to us.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us on this nice fall evening. We're hoping for sure you're going to get a wealth of information, whether you're a first-time home buyer or maybe you're looking into buy your second home, or if you're an agent. This is all good information we're sharing that you can share with friends and family as well. And me from Teachers Federal Credit Union, I'm so happy to be here and working this with Ish. I have over 20 years experience in the mortgage business. I even did 5 years as a realtor with my partner husband, Michael, and we closed several homes, 30 homes actually, while we were agents. So I feel like I have a good grasp of maybe the whole transaction. The only thing I wasn't was an attorney, but I don't have the degree for that. I'll just stick to what I'm good at. And it's great. Home buying is such a rewarding experience, and having a team to help you will eventually see it almost takes a team to purchase a house. Picking the right people to help you and represent you, it will do wonders for you when you purchase. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Donna. So that was an introduction. Donna will certainly have some more time later on to talk about the mortgage process, as well as what benefits Teachers Federal can bring to you. And by the way, Teachers Federal is open to everyone and not just teachers, all right? So that's the beauty of it. Yeah, and as Donna said, and as I said also, home buying is the biggest transaction of a person's life, and you really want to have a solid team working with you. Unfortunately, the way the home buying process goes for many buyers is that somehow or another they'll get pre-approved, and then they'll go to this open house, and then they'll go to that open house, and then they'll go to that open house, and they're talking to 10 different realtors just for a few minutes and chit chat, but they're not getting any solid education. And that is a shame, because this is the biggest purchase of your life, right? Because it's the biggest purchase of your life, you really want to have somebody who is dedicated to educating you in making smart decisions. As I mentioned earlier in the Zoom today, I bought my house in 2013. I was not a real estate agent at that time. And I was a typical home buying consumer. That means I went to this open house and that open house. Believe me, I must have looked at over 100 houses. I am not kidding. I've looked at houses in the Bronx, in Mount Vernon, in New Rochelle, in Yonkers, as well as in Queens, and so forth, right? Let's imagine each realtor showed me 2-3 houses. So that means I must have interacted with about 30-35 realtors, and not a single one invited me to sit down with them and go over the home buying process, which is what we're doing today. You want to really make sure that you have a focused, educated, experienced negotiator helping you in learning about the home buying process and educating you about making smart decisions. That's really, really the key. So let's go. A few minutes ago, we talked about why people should buy a house, and we talked about those 6-7 benefits of home ownership. Now let's go ahead and jump into the actual home buying process. And believe it or not, there are actually about roughly 85 different things that take place from A to Z in the home buying process. There are about 85 different steps. But what we've done is we've condensed this to about 8 steps on your screen, just to kind of give you a bird's eye view for today. All right. It starts right here at the top of my screen at 12 o'clock. It starts with meet with a real estate professional. A good home buying journey, folks, does not start by you going to an open house. A good home buying journey begins with you meeting with a real estate agent and going over your requirements, what you're looking for in a house, and also learning from that real estate agent the home buying process, the do's and don'ts, which we're going to go over next, and so forth, right? So you want to meet with a real estate professional. And by the way, today's session is supposed to be an introductory session. Once we start to work with each other on a more formal basis, we will do this presentation in a more detailed manner, okay? So first step is to meet with a real estate professional, discuss the type of home you're looking for, what are some of your needs, transportation, parking, gardening, schools, taxes, and so forth, and have that real estate agent really understand what it is that you need in home. And then and the beautiful thing about real estate buying, folks, as a buyer, your advantage is that the buyer's agent commission comes from the seller, right? I don't know of any other industry, I don't know of any other business where you get to hire a licensed, educated, and experienced professional to work with you for 3 to 6 months and you don't have to pay them. I mean, that is a beautiful thing, right? So you really want to make sure that you're working with an agent, and you want to make sure that you're working with your own agent, not the seller's agent. When you go to the open house and the agent who is conducting the open house has been hired by the seller to do what? To sell the house. At what price? At the highest price possible. So that agent is not your friend. You need your own expert negotiator. And again, your advantage is that the buyer's agent fee will come from the seller. What's the next step, folks? The next step is to get pre-approved. All right. And majority of buyers understand this, and majority of buyers will connect with the lender. And we have Donna here, and they're going to get a pre-approval. Some buyers will be hesitant, or some buyers will say, hey, let's go see a house first. Once I like the house, I'll go get a pre-approval. I understand I understand the thought process, but you're setting yourself up for failure, right? In this market, we have a ton of buyers and very, very few properties. And so, first of all, many sellers won't even let people into the house without a pre-approval. There's a pandemic outside. So why should 100 people be let into the house when those 100 people are not ready to buy the house? How do you tell the seller that you're ready to buy the house? Well, you get yourself pre-approved. When you have that document that says this person is pre-approved, now the lender, the seller, and the seller's agent is going to take you seriously. So now you're going to get your appointment. You're going to get to see the house. Once you get to see the house and you make an offer, your offer will be taken more seriously rather than someone who's making an offer without a pre-approval. So the next step is to get pre-approved. And also the other thing is a pre-approval sets the tone, it sets the budget. Now you know and I know what we can afford, right? And it's not just a guess, it's an actual number that a lender has arrived at after looking at your financials, right? Once you're pre-approved, what's the next step? Once you're pre-approved, the next step is myself or my team of agents, we start to email you those properties. Okay, again, based on the area that you specified, based on the budget, based on the number of bedrooms and bathrooms, the parking, the basement, the yard, the commute, and so forth. So we email you houses and then we show you houses. I pride myself in the way I work with my buyers, and my agents, my team of agents also do the same thing. We don't email our buyers wrong houses. Okay, you've got a job, you've got a family, you've got a couple of kids, you've got to worry about their school and lunch and all of that. You should not have to spend time on a computer or on Zillow or anywhere else looking at houses. We are going to look at houses for you and find the right ones, again, based on what you told us, and then we will email you only the right houses so that we don't waste your time. Your time is valuable, it's limited, and we want to make sure that we keep it as smooth and simple as possible. So I email only the right houses. My team of agents and I email only the right houses, and then we only show you the right houses. We're not going to take you to a wrong house. If you've told us that you need a house with parking, well, why would we take you to see a house that has no parking? If you've told us that you need 3 bedrooms, why in the world would we take you to see a house with 2 bedrooms? But there are agents who do that, right? We don't want to do that because we understand that as buyers, your time is limited and we want to make sure that we use your time effectively. In fact, many of our buyers buy 3rd, 4th, 5th house that we show them and so forth. Why? Because we're only taking you to see right houses. So chances are that when you walk into the house, chances are you're going to like the house because we have already made sure it has the right number of bedrooms, bathrooms, parking, area, budget, commute, and so forth. All right. So now you like a house. What's the next step? The next step, folks, is to make an offer. And here, again, an agent who does not know what they're doing, this is how they're going to work with you. An agent who doesn't know what they're doing, they're going to turn to you, and I'm gonna pick on Donna. Let's imagine Donna's the buyer. The agent's gonna turn to you and say, okay, Donna, great. You and Michael love this house, and they're asking for $500,000. How much would you like to offer? And maybe you've heard of this conversation, maybe you've heard of this question before, right? As a buyer, but the agent will ask the buyer, hey, how much do you want to offer? And I find that very shocking. Here's why. Because as the professional should not be asking member of the public how much they want to offer. Imagine I go to the hospital for a procedure, and the anesthesiologist turns to me and say, all right, Ish, how much anesthesia would you like? I will run away from that hospital because that's not normal, right? I don't know how much anesthesia I should get. You tell me how much anesthesia I should have based on my body type and how long this procedure is going to be, right? Similarly, a real estate agent went to real estate school. A real estate agent went through real estate experience or should have gotten real estate experience. Therefore, a good real estate agent will not ask the buyer, hey, buyer, you love this house. They're asking for $500,000. How much do you want to offer? That is a wrong question. In fact, a good real estate agent will not even tell you how much to offer. A good real estate agent will actually show you what to offer. And what do I mean by that? Once you tell me that you like this house, what I will tell you is, great, Donna, let me go back to my office and let me look at area sales. Okay, here, I'll give you an example. Let's imagine I want to sell my phone and I want to sell it for $500. And Donna says, let's offer him $480, and that way I'll save $20. Donna's correct. Her logic is correct. Let's offer the guy $480, and we will save $20. But then Donna's husband, Michael, says, nope, hold on a second. Let's go to the store and find out how much they sell it for. So they go to the store and they find out that they actually sell this phone for $450. So was Donna about to save $20? No, Donna was about to overpay $30. How did they find out? How did they come to this conclusion? Well, they went into the market and they compared. So folks, when it comes to buying a house, the asking price doesn't matter. You know what matters? The market price. What is the market value of this house or of this phone? Do you understand? Now, so therefore, again, a good real estate agent will not ask you how much you want to offer. A good agent will not tell you what to offer. A good agent will say, let me go back to my office. Let me look at area sales. That means, what are similar houses in a half-a-mile radius with similar size, similar conditions selling for in the last 6 months? Why half a mile, folks? Why? Because it's a whole different world 1 mile away, 2 miles away, 3 miles away. It's a whole different world, different school district, different look and feel, and so forth. Why only last 6 months? Because it was a different world 12 months ago, 24 months ago. So if you ask me, Ish, what is the price? What is the value of this house? I could tell you the value of this house. Hold on, I think I have a house here I can hold instead of my phone. Here. So if you ask me, Ish, what is the value of this house? I'll be able to tell you a very good estimation of the value of this house based on similar houses in a half-a-mile radius that sold in the last 6 months. Apple to apple comparison. Okay. All right. So that's how you come up with a good offer price. A good offer price, folks, is a balance. When we make a good offer or a good offer price, we're trying to strike a balance. What is that balance? We don't want to overpay and lose your money, but we also don't want to under offer and lose the deal. Do you understand? If you under offer for this house, again, let's go back to the same example of my phone. And I stand at the corner and say, hey, I want to sell my phone for 500. Okay. And let's say Donna says, oh, let's offer him 500. That's a great phone. Let's offer him 500, right? But if they don't know that the market value of my phone is not 500, it's actually 600, do you think they're going to get my phone even at the 500? No, because before I can even say yes to Donna offered me 500 for my phone. Before I could say yes to Donna or even maybe not say yes to her, somebody else is going to offer me 525 or 550. Why? Because that somebody else knows that the real value of my phone is 600. Right? So guys, when we make an offer on a house, we don't want to over offer and lose your money, but we also don't want to under offer and lose the deal. Sometimes buyers work with an agent and they go see a house and the house is asking for, I'll hold the house now. The house is asking for 500, and the buyer will say, go ahead, agent, give them 500. I want this house. Go ahead and give them 500. And the agent gets all happy and types up an offer and sends an offer for 500, only to come back to the buyer 24 hours later and say, hey, Donna, I'm so sorry, your offer was not accepted. Of course it was not accepted, because that was not the value of the house. The sellers put the house in the market for 500, but they did not mean to sell the house for 500. They knew the house is worth more and it will sell for more. So now buyers confused. Donna's confused, like, hey, how come our offer was not accepted? We offered them what they asked for. Well, yes, you offered them what they asked for, but what they asked for was not really what they wanted to sell the house for. That was just a trick. To summarize this portion, guys, when it comes to buying a house, asking price should not matter. Asking price does not matter. What matters? The market price. What is the market value of this house? And how do we figure that out? Well, we figure that out by looking at the market, half-a-mile radius, last 6 months. What do similar size house, similar condition house selling for in the last 6 months? Whatever that price is, well, that's the price of this house. It might be a little bit more than what they're asking for. It might be a little bit less than what they're asking for. But now that you've done your homework, and now your agent has done their homework and educated you about what a good offer is, you make a good offer and you have your pre-approval and you have your bank statement with your funds in there, you're going to have an accepted offer. An accepted offer, guys, is not entirely a matter of luck. It's not a matter of luck. It's not like, well, if we're lucky, our offer is going to get accepted. It's a matter of doing the right thing and making a right offer and making sure that your offer is backed with a pre-approval and proof of funds. I'm going to move on from this topic, but again, we can always do a one-on-one presentation in the future and go over this in more detail. All right. So now that we've made our offer, our offer is accepted, what's the next step? The next step is a home inspection or property inspection. A property inspection is not required by anybody. It's not required by the government. It's not required by your mortgage company or anyone else, but it is highly recommended. You're about to buy a property. Your family is going to live there. You're going to breathe that air. Your kids are going to crawl on that floor. You want to know what's going on in that house, right? So it's not required by anyone, by a highly recommended. A home inspection typically costs anywhere from $400 to $600, depending on the size of the house, if it's a house or co-op or condo and so forth, but highly, highly recommended. By the way, your offer was accepted. Good news, congratulations. But guess what? It's not a guarantee of anything. In New York, an accepted offer is not a guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed until both the buyer and the seller have signed a contract. So what you want to do is you want to really move fast. Once your offer is accepted, you want to keep things moving until everybody has signed the contract. So what is the process? What is the step after your offer is accepted? Home inspection. You want to do the inspection right away. That means next day, not next Tuesday when you have a day off. Because if you wait till next Tuesday to do an inspection, well, somebody else saw the house, somebody else made an offer, and now your offer is gone. You might say, but Ish, I had an accepted offer. Yes, you had an accepted offer, but it doesn't mean anything in New York. An accepted offer is a great news, but there's no guarantee of it. You, the buyer, are free to walk away from this deal, and the seller is also free to walk away from you and go and accept another offer. So we want to move forward quickly, and we want to get our inspection done quickly. Now, after the inspection is done, you and your agent will look at the report from the inspector and talk about some of the items. Now, remember, the inspector's job is to find problems with the house. So the inspector will find every little problem, including that bathroom sink that's leaking, right? But you and I, we don't want to go back to the seller and give them 100 problems, because the seller will then be overwhelmed, and the seller will say, oh my gosh, these buyers are asking for everything, including that sink that's leaking. Let's go ahead and go to the next buyer. We don't want to overwhelm the seller with 100 problems. We want to go to the seller with 2-3 big problems, the problems that are going to cost you lots of money, such as maybe a leak in the roof, or a boiler that's bad, a leak in the foundation. These are big problems. We don't want to worry about the small problems, which you can take care of after the closing. All right, that's called a second negotiation. We go back to the seller and say, hey, seller, these are some of the big problems that we found, and we would like you to take care of those problems. The seller's going to agree to some of it. The seller's going to agree to maybe all of it, or the seller's going to agree to give you a price discount to take care of those problems on your own, take care of those issues on your own. The next thing is to meet with an attorney. The seller's lawyer will prepare the contract and send it over to your lawyer. By the way, just like we're happy to recommend you a lender, we're also happy to recommend you home inspector and attorney as well. You really want to make sure that you have a good realtor working with you who knows what they're doing, who knows the market, and who has your best interest in their heart, okay? When you have a realtor like that, now you want to rely on their recommendations. Okay, because buying a house is quite complicated to begin with. You don't want to make it more complicated by bringing in an attorney that you've not worked with or the realtor has not worked with, because many attorneys are very busy. Many home inspectors are not reliable, and so forth, right? So you really want to make sure that you work with recommended professionals. All right, seller's attorney, folks, is going to prepare the contract and send it over to the buyer attorney, your attorney. Your attorney is then going to call you and say, hey, Sonia, we have received your contract. When would you like to come and meet with us to review this contract? Again, your answer should be as soon as possible. Again, you have an accepted offer, congratulations, but it's not a guarantee of anything. And you really want to sign the contract as soon as possible. Otherwise, somebody else can make an offer and take that deal, take that house away from you. So when your attorney's office calls you and says, hey, Sonia, when would you like to meet with us? Say, when is the soonest? Not next Wednesday when I have a day off. Right? That means if you can go a couple of hours, late for your job and call your job and say, hey, I'd like to come 2 hours late tomorrow, do that. I'm sure your supervisor would be quite understanding to know that you're going to be coming in 2 hours late because you're buying a house. Anybody would be happy to hear that. So you've got to make these little concessions to make sure that you really keep things moving quickly. All right, what's going to happen when you go meet with your attorney? By the way, attorneys these days are meeting over Zoom as well. So you don't actually need to go in person to meet with your attorney. Your attorney is going to review the contract with you, answer your questions, and then they're going to give you the contract to sign either in person or electronically. Once you sign the contract, you're also going to write a check for the down payment, okay? This contract and this check for down payment now goes to the seller's attorney, and the seller's attorney is going to sit down with the seller and they're going to sign the contract. Once the seller signs the contract, folks, now you are in contract. Now the house is not going away from you. Now you can take a deep breath, okay? And now you start to work with Donna. We give her a copy of the contract, and Donna's going to start the mortgage application, and I'll let her talk about the mortgage process in a little bit. There's appraisal, and your lawyer is also going to do title search. A title search is to find out any legal problems with the house. Hey, are there any open tickets? Are there any open violations? Who are the owners? Are there any other owners that we don't know about? Because we don't want problems later on, right? Once the appraisal is back, once the title is clear, now your mortgage company and Donna are going to issue you a commitment letter. That's a guarantee, soft guarantee that you're getting a mortgage. There's no guarantees in the mortgage business unless you got the keys, right? But a commitment letter is sort of like a soft guarantee saying, okay, we're going to commit to giving you the money. And now your attorney is going to call you and say, hey, what day works for you for the closing? We're going to look at our calendar. We're going to pick a day for the closing. And one day before the closing, we're going to go back to the house to look at the house. That's called a final walkthrough. At the final walkthrough, we're looking at their ceiling to see if there's any rain coming down. is the roof leaking that wasn't leaking before? Is the refrigerator missing? Are the windows broken? Are the doors broken? Is there anybody living in the house who shouldn't be living in the house? And so forth. That's the final walkthrough. Next day, you go to the closing table, you go to the attorney's office, and we have a closing. We give you the keys to the house, and congratulations, you are now a homeowner. I have one more slide, and then I'm done for this portion, and then Donna's gonna talk about mortgage process. All right, let's talk about some do's and don'ts. When you are buying a house, folks, and you are getting a mortgage, it's important to follow these steps. And we talk about, by the way, the home buying process that I just talked to you about, this process, don't worry about remembering the whole thing, okay? When you work with us and my team, we will talk about the next step every step of the way. So every step of the way, wherever you are, we're gonna say, okay, Jennifer, this is what's gonna happen next. And this is what's gonna happen next. So don't worry about remembering all of this stuff, okay? All right. And by the way, we will email you this video. We'll also email you this PDF that I'm going through, as well as Donna's PDF that she's going to go through in a minute. So let's talk about do's and don'ts when you're buying a house with a mortgage. When you're buying a house with a mortgage, you really want to make very careful financial decisions. Otherwise, it could delay your home buying, or it could even jeopardize the entire home buying altogether for a number of months or number of years. So you really want to make sure that you're careful with financial decisions. Number one, do not quit your job. All right. Mortgage companies look for stable employment. They want to know that you are stably employed and you're getting paid on a regular basis from a regular job. So please don't change your job, don't get fired, don't quit your job, and so forth. Next thing is, do not deposit a large amount of cash into your bank. Mortgage companies need to know where this money came from, and cash is not really easy to trace. All right, so you may have $10,000 in your mattress, and if you go put it in the bank, the mortgage company will want to know where this money came from. And if you cannot explain it to them, they will not let you use it to buy a house. It's your money, but you can't use it to buy a house. You can buy shoes with it, but not a house. Okay. Next thing is, don't make any large purchases such as a new car or new furniture, because a new car may come with a new financing or new lease. And that's a liability. You go to Raymore and buy furniture and no interest for 2 years, and you say, oh, well, it's no interest, it's not going to affect my home buying. It will, or it may affect your home buying. So don't go and get new financing for a new car, new furniture, or anything like that. In fact, I like to say, don't buy anything except for food. Why? Because you may need the additional money. We don't know which house you're going to end up buying. Right? It may need a new kitchen. It may need a new refrigerator, and so forth. So try and save every dollar possible. Don't buy anything unless absolutely necessary, such as food and diapers, okay? And the more stuff you buy, the more stuff you're gonna have to put in a U-Haul. So stop buying stuff, okay? The next thing is, do not co-sign loans for other people. So someone else wants to buy a car or furniture or a house and says, Shivani, will you help me get a mortgage for my new house or my car? Say, hey, not right now. Let's talk about it in a few months. I'm in the process of buying my own house. Do not change your bank accounts. Mortgage companies might need some old bank statements. They might need a copy of an old check that you wrote. And it's kind of hard to get that out of an account that you close, right? If an account's open, you can just log in and print it out yourself. So don't close any bank accounts. Do not apply for new credit cards. New credit cards can lower your credit score. At the same time, don't close any old credit cards. Old credit cards are actually good for your credit score, and therefore don't close any old credit cards. Leave it alone. And lastly, don't spend your down payment money. Don't lend it to your cousin. Don't buy Bitcoins with it. Don't move it from one account to the other. Don't do anything except for keep it where it is in that same account. In fact, I like to say, don't make any financial changes in your life without talking to your real estate agent and to your mortgage lender. Say, hey, Donna, my car's kind of giving me trouble, and I can hold up for 3 months, but I was thinking about going to buy it this weekend. What do you think? So check with Donna first before you go make that decision. Why? Because then we can prevent a problem rather than have to treat the problem later on. All right, guys, so that's my do's and don'ts about buying a house. And then, there's my website and there's my bio. I'll send all of this to you. I want to stop this presentation and I want to turn the floor over to Donna. Thank you guys for listening to me. And all right, Donna, I have your slides up.
That is me. I'm up. Okay. Wow, Ish, that was so well thought out and planned.
Thank
Such
you.
good tips on there. Yeah, so the do's and don'ts page, everyone should like print that and keep that in their pocket because it could really make or break your deal. So,
And, and Donna, you talk about do's and don'ts with your clients,
oh
and
yeah,
and the attorney will talk about the do's and don'ts. When you go sit with the attorney will also tell you these. Believe it or not, some buyers will still go and do these things. I had a buyer recently whose car was giving trouble, and he went to the Toyota dealership for repairs, and the repairs came out to $3,000. And the guy said, "Hey, just open a Toyota card and you can put the $3,000 on there." And he did, despite us telling them don't get any new credit cards. Well, guess what? The mortgage company found this out one day before the closing. Guys, one day before the closing, we go do the final walkthrough. But you know what your mortgage person is doing? Your mortgage person is checking your credit one day before the closing. And they're also calling your company, your job, to see if you're working there. So do not leave your job. Even if you got that commitment letter, does not mean you got the mortgage. You don't have a mortgage until you have the keys to the house. All right. That person's closing was delayed by 2 weeks. We did close, but his wife was very unhappy with him.
oh yeah, I'm sure. And it's so funny that you put the other scenario with the furniture. I actually had a deal where, sure enough, right before closing, they pulled the credit again, which is what banks do. Anything with a date on it eventually expires. So sure enough, the credit expired. They pull it before closing. Raymore and Flanagan, there we go. Like, what's going on? They're like, oh, but we got such a great deal on the furniture. So, we furnished the whole house and, needless to say, we had to wait, sure enough, like another 2 weeks, like in Ish's deal and eventually close. But yeah, no one's happy in the end.
Yeah.
So
And it can end up costing you more money because now the rate might expire. So you've got to pay for rate extension, or maybe the appraisal expires, or this expires, or that expires. So it can end up costing you a lot more money just because somebody didn't listen or forgot. So that's why I like to go, I talk about do's and don'ts with my buyers every step of the way. I say, hey, remember, don't go and get a new credit card. Sometimes we go to Macy's or H&M and say, hey, would you like a new credit card for 10% discount? Please say no. Go ahead, Donna.
all right, so thanks everyone again. Let me tell you a little about Teachers Federal Credit Union. So despite the name Teachers Federal Credit Union, like Ish mentioned, it is not only for teachers. I mean, they have been around 68 years ago, and it did originally start as a place where educators can get financing and have their assets, but now it is opened up to everybody. You simply just need a checking or a savings account. And unlike the other credit unions where they're like, oh, well, you have to live in this county, or you have to do this, or you have to, solicit these certain businesses in order to open, that's not true here. You need simply a minimum of $1 to open an account. And the reason why credit unions are just so different, like as you can see these numbers, right? It's 360,000 members. We call our customers members. 360,000 members, that is like a drop of salt in these bigger banks, the Citibanks, the Chases. How do I know? Not only because we know, but I actually also work there. So I worked at the big banks and the bigger lenders and the small shop brokers. And when I was coming back now into business after trying to be a cool realtor like Ish, I said, you know what? Any deal that I ever lost, the only time I ever lost it is if the customer was looking at a credit union. If they were comparing me at one of the big banks to a credit union, I could not beat the rate. I just kind of knew like, oh, okay, hopefully my charm will win them over. But if it's really about their monthly payment, I'm probably not going to get the deal. And that's what it is. Because this credit unions are a nonprofit agency, the benefits that we make and the revenue that comes back, they give it back to their members in better mortgage interest rates, lower home equity interest rates, car loans, student loans, better interest rates on their checking and savings accounts. So these are things just, even in the end, if you don't end up doing a mortgage with teachers or a credit union, look into a credit union for your banking needs. Okay, so different types of homes that you would be looking at. It's kind of simple, and you would think like, there are so many different caveats, but really, when it comes down to it, there's 4 different, we'd like to call it residential homes, right? So the difference, there's residential homes, and then whatever's not residential is generically called a commercial home. So a single family home is, like it says, it's built on a single lot. They can be attached, detached. They can also be called a townhouse, but they would not be confused with a multifamily home, which is anything that's a 2-family, 3-family, 4-family. And believe it or not, even if you wanted to buy a 4-family home, it would still be considered a residential home, just a multifamily residence. Co-ops. So sometimes everyone gets a little confused. Oh, what's the difference between a co-op and a condo? So a co-op is the owners will own shares in a corporation. And because you have the shares in a corporation, it's kind of like if you had IBM shares, what would you get? You'd get a certificate that says how many shares you have. In addition to getting a certificate, which says how many shares you have in their corporation, you would also get a place to live. Yes, they're actually giving you, usually it's an apartment, but they come in garden townhouses with, a little backyard and a little front yard. They could be high rises, they could be low rises. I mean, co-ops now come in all shapes and colors. And it's a real property that has value that you can sell, that maybe it's just your way to get your foot into a door. Remember, a way for you to stop paying rent and own something, so you build that equity and you have that appreciation. And when you either the family grows or you grow or you get tired of it or you decide you don't like your new neighbors, you sell it and you get the profit and you move on. And then maybe your next step is something called a condo. So a condominium is a little different. It's each owner has ownership in a specific unit. So I don't know a better way to describe it, but like in the co-op, you probably wouldn't have your own water heater and your boiler. But in a condo, guess what? There's going to be a little room. You're going to have your own water heater, your own boiler. You can do more changes to the property as far as construction or home improvement. You can do that. But each of these places are usually managed, a co-op and a condo, by a managing agent that charges a fee for, it's called a homeowners association fee. So in a co-op, there's a monthly fee that would include for the shareholders, your real estate taxes, homeowners insurance, water, heat, anything that has to do with the building. They kind of take all the bills and then they divide it by how many units in a building. Condo, little different. It's more of a real property. You will pay your own real estate taxes separately. You'll pay a much smaller fee for the association that would probably include maybe like leaf removal and snow removal. And then you will also pay your own homeowner's insurance. And then any repairs in there, unlike a co-op where you can call the super and say, hey, this is not working, come fix it. On a condo, you'd probably be calling your brother-in-law saying, oh no, this is broken, come fix it. No, the repairs you would kind of do on your own. Okay. And so now how much down payment should I put? Everyone has this, different ideas and they hear through the grapevine. There is a minimum down payment required for each type of home. So I'll give you a few examples. If you were doing a single family home, that's also the 1 family, you can do anywhere from 3%, 3.5% to 5%. Co-ops and condos, and of course you can do more, right? These are just the minimums. Co-ops and condos, you're looking at a minimum of a 10% down payment. And I have to put a little reminder in here that these are specific for New York. If you were looking at something in Florida, just a little caveat that, a little footnote that condos in Florida, you would have to put a little bigger of a down payment. But generally in New York, co-ops and condos, a 10% down payment. The other thing with that is you'd have to get a co-op or a condo to agree that you could put a 10% down payment. In case some of you might not know, co-ops generally, especially after this pandemic, are really looking for 20% down. So even though there's a significance in the price, co-ops are generally a lot cheaper than a condominium. They are looking for that 20% down payment that sometimes ends up making it easier for a buyer to buy a condo. 2-unit properties, you're looking at a 15% down payment, and for 3 to 4 units, you'd have to put 25% down. Private mortgage insurance is an institution that was made up for customers to be able to buy properties and get into homes without having this 20% down payment, because as you can see the prices of homes right now, not everyone has 20% saved up for a $500,000, one family home. Like, there have to be other options. So for you to be able to get in that same home with a 5% down payment, mortgage insurance is something that's charged. So the bank will have a guarantee that, in case for some reason they had to resell the property, at least 20% of that property would be covered then by this insurance company. So it's an additional fee. So when you're looking at your monthly payment, you're looking at your mortgage payment, your homeowner's insurance, your taxes, and if you put less than 20% down payment, it would be your private mortgage insurance, also called PMI. Okay, the cost of getting a mortgage. How much do you need to buy a home? So the upfront costs are different. They're different at different banks, and sometimes there's coupons and you might get a deal here and there, maybe depending on where you work. Upfront cost for us is an application fee and appraisal fee. Almost at every bank is going to charge that. And then what you would also need to put is the down payment on the contract. Now, keep in mind, it's not your full down payment, okay? This is where you would ask your attorney's better judgment. Okay, my entire down payment is going to be $50,000, but how much of that do I need to pay up front? You're going to want to generally try to put as least down payment as possible on contract, or as much as the seller will let you. So just keep that in mind. It's not the entire down payment. You put a little at contract, and then you're going to bring the rest to closing. This is good in case you were getting a gift, so maybe you have the initial down payment, but the rest of the money's coming. Maybe it's coming from your 401k, maybe it's coming from family members. So just a little note, so you remember that. Closing costs. Closing costs can be estimated anywhere from 3% to 5%. Completely different for a co-op. However, a co-op, since it's not technically, I guess we could say, quote unquote, real property, the fees are very fixed. There's about 10 fees that have a flat fee charge. Co-op closing costs will run you anywhere from $3,500 to $4,000, which on a house or a condo would be completely different. It includes things like your attorney fees. The bank's attorney, the buyer ends up having to pay for, no matter what bank you go to. Any origination fees. If you chose to, hey, you know what, I want to see if I can get a lower interest rate. If I pay you, 1% of the loan amount, can you lower my interest rate? So any fee like that, if you chose to do it, would be part of your closing cost. And then something called a title, which Ish had mentioned earlier. It's a policy that they really scan the property to make sure there's no open violations or permits or any other owners. They're also going to hold something called a tax escrow. So the amount of real estate taxes, and of course this would only be for the house or the condo, the co-op doesn't have real estate taxes. The banks want to hold at least 4 months of this in an escrow account. So like I said, something goes wrong and you can't make your mortgage payment. Hey, you know what? they can still pay the real estate taxes on your property, and no one's gonna try to take it away from you. Let me tell you what else we have. What else you could do? So acceptable assets, you can have deposit accounts. So any money coming from savings, checking, money market CDs, that's all usable. As Ish mentioned, you're gonna wanna keep the traffic in these accounts down to a minimum. But this is where your money needs to be eventually. If you're starting off at a pre-approval, you're gonna try to get your assets into the bank. Once you apply for the mortgage, the bank is gonna ask you for 2 months mortgage statements from the date you applied. So you have to think now, hey, oh, if I start looking for a house now, you know, and I sign a contract in December and I apply for the mortgage, they're gonna ask me for November, October and November statements. You need to have gotten your money in there in September, right? So keep that in mind. We're gonna ask you for 2 months before, have all your funds in there by the time you apply, by the time you sign the contract. A lot of people take money from their brokerage accounts, their retirement accounts, that's all good. It's all allowed. Gift funds, as I mentioned, family gifts only come from family, right? Because we hope family doesn't want you to pay it back. A gift needs to truly be a gift. In order for it to be used, it can't have a little footnote on there says that, you know, after you close, make sure you pay me. No, it's in order for you to use the funds for a house, it needs to actually be a gift. And gifts of equity. So if you're purchasing a home from a family member and they say, hey, you know what, why don't you use 50,000 equity in the house towards your down payment? Something like that is also allowed. So tips on saving and building your credit. To improve your credit score, you can do different things like Ish had mentioned, like not only just paying your bills on time, do not maintain high balances. Really try to keep the balance 30% or less of how much your line is. Do not close off, like Ish mentioned, same thing. You have a credit card that's sitting there for 10 years that you barely use, but it's still there. And you're like, you know what? I don't want to look bad. Let me close it off. No. Credit scores and the higher credit scores are given with the length of history you have credit for. So keeping those old credit cards open are clutch. Don't do yourself any favors and try to consolidate everything all to one credit card and then close everything else off. You need a minimum of 4 lines of credit in order to build that FICO score. Save for a higher down payment and closing costs, you know, maintain your steady job, like Ish mentioned, please, you know, not time to change careers, to go from a salaried employee to a self-employed, and kind of open your own company. If you do happen to be self-employed, like we're going to want a 2-year history of that. Just keep that in mind. Let's see. Got that. So why choose teachers? Oh, we're already up to this. Okay, so Teachers Federal Credit Union, we have our local branches. We also now have online banking appointments. You would see from our website, you can make an appointment, a phone appointment. We have in-house underwriting and processing. It is so much easier to have a file looked at when there's, you know, the underwriters like sitting right next to me. So makes such a big difference. I would know this because I've worked at the bigger banks and around those things where things are out of state or even out of the country, your loan is actually getting worked on. We retain servicing on our loans. This is kind of huge for people. Once you become a homeowner and it's time to send out that mortgage check, servicing is something where when you make the check payable to, it will always say Teachers Federal Credit Union. We don't sell the loan to different servicing companies. And, you know, 3 months later, you're like paying XYZ servicing. And then 2 months after that, you can't remember who to pay. And then you end up with a late payment. That's not going to happen here. We offer a free 60-day lock-in for your interest rate. So a good time to think about locking in your rate. You can start it depending on how fast you think it's going to go from the day you apply for the loan. You can wait till you get approved, or you can wait all the way down up till 8 days before closing and take your chance, see how the rates are. We have, like I mentioned, competitive interest rate, and our closing costs are much lower. We are definitely the 3% category. And the next slide will show you the smart choice. Closing costs compared to other lenders, your savings like $5,000 based on this. $13,000 in a regular lender, our closing costs running about $8,300. The interest that you're saving based on our loans and our lower interest rate is humongous. We don't offer any prepayment penalties. You want to send a little extra money every month to try to get rid of your mortgage sooner, that is all allowed. Next slide. Teachers offers an array of different loan products to benefit everyone. Like most banks do, we do the 10 years to 30-year mortgages. We have fixed rate and adjustable mortgages. Our adjustable mortgages have really lock bottom rates, and you might want to look into this a little more. Adjustable rates aren't as scary as some people might think. If you really utilize it, depending on your plan, it could really benefit you. There are adjustable mortgages that do stay fixed for a certain amount of period. The first 5 years, the first 7 years, the first 10 years. A lot of people after the first 10 years, they've already moved on to the house, or, their kids are bigger and they need a different school district. They want better schools. So think about it. Those interest rates on adjustable mortgages are so much less. And when the rate is less, it allows you to borrow more money. We do have a no closing cost option, which the bank pays at least half of your closing costs for you. They do charge you a little higher interest rate. And then we have other products that Fannie Mae comes out for low to income buyers or low to moderate income areas that you're purchasing in that have other benefits, where we can use income from a basement apartment, believe it or not. We can use income if you have a boarder living in your home and the boarder is gonna come with you to the next home. So interesting things like that. And on the next slide, you'll see if you go to teachersfcu.org and you go to the mortgage section, we have this fabulous check rates link where it's so simple to use for everyone. As you can see, there's only, what is that, like 9 different drop-down boxes, and the interest rate really is so up to date and accurate. There's very few things that would make it that when you came, we would say, oh no, that was wrong. I mean, it's really an accurate way that you can check the rates yourself every day. But that's what I'm here for. So feel free to call me every day if you wanted to, and I would be happy to tell you what the interest rate is. So I saw there was a few things came up in the chat. So I don't know if there were any questions. Oh, you're muted. We should have a sign that says muted.
Yeah, they told us that we're gonna have flying cars in 2020, and here we are in 2021. We can't figure out Zoom. I'm not sure if we're ready for flying cars just yet. I don't see anything in chat, so I don't think there was anything in chat. But guys, let's go ahead and open up the floor to anyone who has questions. Unmute yourself, ask questions, don't be shy. There are no silly questions, okay? Did you learn something today? Do you have a question about something?
Thank you for everything. It's been a really good meeting so far. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
No worries. Go ahead. Wilson, you have a question?
Yeah. Donna, do you work with grant money also, helping first-time home buyer?
We do have some programs that are available for grants. I mean, that do accept grant money, but in Suffolk County, I believe, not in the boroughs.
Got it.
Okay.
And then Musa says, can we do closing or deposit by cash? So my understanding, Musa, is that real estate transactions will allow you $1,000 in cash. You can bring up to $1,000 in cash. Everything else has got to be a check. That means the money's got to be in your bank account. And your contract that you sign will say that. You'll say that up to $1,000 allowed in cash. Donna, you want to add anything from your perspective?
Wow. No, I think you covered the topic on that. Yeah.
Yeah, $1,000 is what's allowed, and it might be a New York State thing.
Mm.
All right, who else? But hey, there's ways to get that money in the bank, right? So reach out to us, and we'll work with you to show you how we can do that. But good question. Certainly a good question. It's a question that we come up with. People ask all the time. All right, who else has
Yes,
got a question?
I definitely feel it's just probably like more to that question. So in
Yeah.
case anyone else needs that, you can always call us and ask us about that too. How to get your cash deposit in or your cash for your down payment in.
Yes, we'll take we'll keep taking questions, but go ahead, questions, folks.
I
Bitcoin.
have a question, Ismail. For that, I heard you. I didn't catch what you said about Suffolk. What's accepted
Oh, in
for?
Suffolk County, I know there are some nonprofits and there's some grant programs in Suffolk County that I know that we work with, but I would have to look into it more and tell you who specifically.
Oh, okay.
It's on a case-by-case basis. So there's qualifications, there's income qualifications, there's property price qualifications. So it's an individual case-by-case scenario, and you definitely want to connect with Donna to learn more about it. By the way, guys, the time to buy a house is right now. I'm blessed to have bought 3 houses so far in my life. My first house was 8% interest rate back in 2008. And then my second house was in 2013, and my interest rate was around 5.5, 5.75. My most recent purchase, which was this April, was also 5 point something. It was an investment property, blah, 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 multifamily investment, blah, blah. But, for a first time home buyer, the interest rate is right now around 3 something, right? Again, it depends on people's circumstances. Go ahead, Donna.
Oh, yeah, but you can average like 3%. Like when you're looking at these houses, you
Right.
can use 3%, you could use 3.125. Like Ish said, it all depends on not only your down payment, but your type of house, but roughly money is so cheap right now. And that is exactly when to borrow it, when it's cheap.
Let's take and I'll go to George's question in a second, but let's think about this. If you go to Macy's or H&M and buy a shirt and then you don't pay that credit card bill, next month you're going to have 19% or 21% interest rate on what? On a $50 pair of pants. But you can buy a $500,000 house in America and the interest rate is 3%. God bless America. You understand? So on a $50 pair of pants, the interest rate is 19%, but on a $500,000 house, the interest rate is 3%. So it's an amazing time to buy a house. By the way, even just a 0.5% in interest rate rise, it can cost you $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over the course of your mortgage. Right.
Yeah.
So you really don't want to wait unless you absolutely can't buy a house. You really want to buy now rather than later. And you really want to have a real estate team that's going to educate you through the whole process, connect you with lenders and lawyers and inspectors so that your journey is smooth. Donna, Giorgio says or asks,
Yeah.
and it's a nice question, is are Bitcoins accepted?
So a Bitcoin, as far as I know right now, wish it was accepted. I haven't heard anybody accepting Bitcoins other than if they sold it then and then turned it into cash. But you know what? I am going to ask that because I have a feeling this will come up more and more. So that is a great question to ask.
I wonder if the seller was willing to accept Bitcoin for, let's say, the down payment or whatever, and the buyer had Bitcoins. I wonder, I've got to look into it too. I've not had anybody ask me this question, or I've not had any buyer or seller come up with this scenario, but it's certainly, these currencies are here to stay, and we certainly want to be, at the forefront of it.
Oh,
Shivani, I think, had a hand up, and then I'm gonna go to Musa's question afterwards. Go ahead, Shivani.
I just had a quick question about the basement being used as income. Is that across the board? Even for a single family? If
Well,
someone's purchasing a single family as well?
Yes, so yes, believe it or not, they are letting you use basement income on a single family. It doesn't make a difference what. The basement just needs to have a separated entrance from the house. So when we asked more about that, it was just have a door that's closed into the house, which is, everyone has that. And it needs to have the separate outside entrance. So basement income that would not be allowed to use is, if there was no separate entrance from outside and you just had to go from inside the house to the basement, that's not considered a real apartment for them. It needs to be a separate entrance basement. It also doesn't need to have egress windows and whatever you think makes a basement legal. You don't need any of that. It truly is amazing. Of course, there's different other qualifying aspects of it, but even if you have anybody or it's you yourself that you think might be able to use the income from this basement to help qualify, like we should definitely look at it.
Thank you, Donna. I have a question from Musa. Musa says, my business has been active since December 2019. So should I wait for 2 years? Do I need to show at least 2 years worth of tax returns as self-employed? His business has been active since December 2019.
Yes, so Musa, anyone self-employed would have to show 2 years taxes. And you know what, Musa, before you file the next one, it's never too late, right? Now is the great time to reach out to your bank or your loan officer and find out how much income is actually supposed to be on that next year's taxes, right? What they do for self-employed customers is they average your income for the last 2 years. So everyone knows, like, if you were self-employed and during the pandemic and you made like $10,000 for the year, but business is back in action and you're good to go, and now you're up to $90,000 profit this year, they're really going to average that income. So it's a great time before you file the taxes to reach out to your banker, reach out to me, and find out how much income is actually supposed to be on there.
Yes, and to kind of go over that earlier sentiment and statement that we were talking about, real estate is the fastest way to build wealth in America. If you want to become wealthy in this country, the stock market and going to work may help, but that's not the fastest way. The fastest way is through real estate. Some rich people have jets and some rich people have yachts, but they all have real estate because they know the value of real estate, right? Real estate values always go up. In fact, I challenge all of you guys to look up a 40-year history of real estate prices in the United States. And if you guys remember what happened in 2008, right? We had a real estate crash, prices went really down, and the whole world was suffering, right? But if you look at a 40-year chart, you will notice that the real estate prices go up, 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 and the 2008 is a little tiny blip, and it goes right back up, 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 and up. So such a big 2008 event is actually a small little blip when you look at a long history such as 30, 40 years, right? So real estate prices always go up over time. Yes, there's small ups and downs over time, but you really want to make sure that you get in there and be motivated. I talk to buyers of all types. I talked to some buyers who are making $30,000, but they really are motivated to buy a house. And somehow they're kicking and pulling and pushing, and they get a house. And then I also talk to buyers who are making $100,000, $150,000, but they don't have the motivation. They don't really see the rush or the urgency. And I try to stress to them, guys, you need to buy a house. You need to become a homeowner. You need to have a house. You understand? But I appreciate all of you who joined. Any more questions? Thank you, Jennifer, for joining, Georgia for joining, Musa, Elisa, Sonia, Kimberlyn, Bernadette, Wilson, everybody who joined, Levon, Shivani, Kamel, Donna, of course, Donna, Melissa. Keep your questions coming. We have 8 more minutes. We're going to take 8 more minutes to go through these questions. I want to motivate you guys to buy real estate. Why? It's not about a house, folks. It's not about a house, and it's not about the check that we earn. In fact, the check that I earn is probably spent before I even get the check. You understand? Because the lives that we lead, right? The money that I earn is probably spent before I even earn it, and I forget about how much I made the next week. But to see the change, I sold a house to this young family 3 years ago. Charlene, Karina, and their baby's name is Haley. She was 1 year old. The baby was 1 year old. They were living in a 1-bedroom apartment near Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. I worked with them 3 years ago. I sold them a single family house in Mount Vernon for $220. 3 years ago, $220. Today their house is $450. Okay, and I went to Haley's 4th birthday a few months ago, and to see Haley in the backyard and a swimming pool, and they have parking in a yard, that's what really motivates me and Donna to know that we really are changing people's lives. When you own your own house, it's not about that real estate, it's about the life that is being changed. You can afford to send your kids to private schools because now you're not paying rent to the landlord. You can afford to take more vacations because your money, which is in the house, is working for you, and your house prices are going up, your house value is going up, and so forth. So that's what really motivates me. That's what really motivates me, to know that we are affecting somebody's life. We're affecting generational wealth, right? You will be able to leave this for your kids and grandkids when we're not here. And that generational wealth is going to stay with the next generation. So guys, that's what it's all about. I know you guys are motivated. That's why you're spending Wednesday evening with us. I know you're motivated. So congratulations on being motivated. So let's not stop here. The next step, what you want to do is I'm gonna email the information for Donna, for myself. I'm gonna share this video. I'm gonna share the PDFs and everything. Reach out to myself or reach out to the realtor that you joined with, because we do have our team of realtors with us here today. And also reach out to Donna as well. Even if
I have a question before you close.
yeah, well, no problem. Give me 1 second. Even if you think you're not ready, reach out, right? Because even if you're not ready, and even if we determine that you're not ready, at least we're going to give you homework. We're going to give you homework to become ready, right? Yeah. So that's what it's all about. Don't just leave it to yourself. So you know what? I'm not ready. I'm going to wait 6 months and then I'm going to reach out to these guys. I don't want to bother them. This is our work. You're not bothering us, right? But if you reach out to us, and if we determine you're ready, well, now you're ready. But if we determine you're not ready, we're going to give you homework so you can become ready. We'll give you a plan like, hey, this is what we need from you in the bank. This is what we need your credit score to be, and so forth. Go ahead, Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question about, do the seller need to pay the property taxes that they owe before signing contract of before the closing on the property?
So the seller owes some money to the county or the city. The seller owes money to the city. Does the seller have to pay the taxes before the closing? It's the seller's problem. It's not your problem, right? That's why we do title search. Remember the part when we went through that wheel, the home buying process, one of the steps of the process was a title search. That means your lawyer checks the title for legal problems. Are there any open tickets, any open bills, any open balances, any violations, and so forth. And if there are, it's not the buyer's problem, it is the seller's problem. And yes, all of those problems would be cleared before you get the keys to the house. Musa has a question. Do we only help in New York State or other states? We are actually across all 50 states, and we're across 18 countries. So even though I'm licensed only in New York, I can connect you with a fantastic realtor in any state that you want to look in. In fact, I have people right now looking in France, and my company is actually in France. So I'm in the process of connecting them to a fantastic and great realtor in France as well. So absolutely. You want to make sure you've got a great realtor, you've got a great lender, because that's how you're going to have a smooth process. I had a buyer, Natalie, she did buy a house. I had a buyer, Natalie, come to me, and we decided to work together. And then I said, and by the way, I can't force you who to work with. I can't tell you which lawyer you must work with. I can't do that. Right. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in the business of forcing people to do things. Right. So but we have recommendations. Right. So I said, hey, Natalie, this is an attorney I'd like you to recommend and work with. Natalie's like, no, I want to work with this person. And, I said, are you sure? This and that? Yes. I'm telling you, once we started working, there was a period of 40 days when there was no email or phone calls from that attorney. 40 days. By the way, the whole process is supposed to take 40 days, but there was a time period of 40 days when the attorney was non-communicative. And we were all just kind of figuring out what's going on. Ultimately, we did hear from the attorney and we did close, but guess what? That's not a smooth journey. Right? So you really want to make sure you've got a great team and great support around you of people who care. All right. And by the way, when we make these recommendations, when I recommend you to Donna or Donna recommends you to me, or when I recommend you to an attorney, it's not because I'm getting something extra from behind the doors. No, in fact, that's against the law. When I recommend you to an attorney, it's not because the attorney is going to give me something a little extra. That's actually against the law. We could lose our license for that. That's not why we do things. We recommend you to people because we know this person is going to give you good quality service. And if you get good quality service, well, you're going to have good journey. You're going to have an easy journey, but I'm also going to have an easy journey too. Otherwise, I'm going to have a headache and you're going to have a headache trying to close this deal, right? So we don't want headaches for you. We don't want headaches for us. We want a smooth journey. We want attorneys and lawyers and lenders and inspectors who are going to answer phone calls. Donna, you have any, go ahead and wrap up and give us your last wrap-up statement.
Oh, I just want to thank everybody again for, spending this evening with us, asking all your questions. I know only the good questions pop up in your head after midnight. I know, I also searched for a home one time. So, but don't let that stop you. Shoot us an email, shoot a text, whatever it is. We're definitely going to get to it. We're here to put you on the path to home ownership. Your accountant, whoever does your taxes, will promote this as well. I'm sure can tell you all the tax benefits and would be loving that you get into a home. So feel free to reach out to Ish or I and your agent and the agents, please, want more information, reach out to me. I would love to meet you and work together and get more people in homes.
Just the last couple of questions. Any COVID restrictions to meet with us? No, as long as you don't have COVID, we can meet with you. Just work.
That's a good one.
If you've got COVID, don't come meet with us. Wait until it goes away. But I mean, look, we wear masks and I've got hand sanitizer and I'm fully vaccinated and so forth. So that's fine. Don't worry about that. What's the minimum credit score required? What is it, Donna? 580?
If you're doing a conventional loan, it's 620. If you're going FHA, I believe it's 580.
So 580 is the bare minimum, and then 620 can open some more doors for you.
Yes.
So that's that. And then in case you buy and then you leave this state and go to another state, can you still rent it out and collect? Oh, absolutely. Welcome to America. Absolutely. If you buy a house here and then you wanna move to Jersey, yeah, you can sell this one and you'll get some profit out of it. You've got the equity, the appreciation, or rent it out and keep collecting rent and keep paying the mortgage and so forth. Absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you.
Last question, please, for Donna. Can a person that work out of the state, let's say in Pennsylvania, apply for mortgage with the teacher?
Oh, yes. You work out of state, if you work remotely, even if you're buying out of state, yes, you definitely can still qualify.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. I'm going to email everyone, and I will email you my contact, Donna's contact, as well as the video for today, as well as the PDF from today. Let's put house buying on your 2022 plans. guys. 2022, let's say you're going to become a homeowner, and it is entirely possible, all right? But you've got to be motivated. You've got to say, I want this, pray and meditate and want it deep down in your heart. It will happen. Thank you guys so much. Donna, thank you so much. You're amazing. And I'm looking forward to doing many, many deals with you.
Yes.
Have a good night, guys. Thank you, Levon,
Night.
Shivani, Kamel, Cameline, Bernadette, Wilson, Sonia, Elisa, Giorgio, Jennifer, Muhammad, Musa, Maliza, and Alan. Thank you, guys. Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.